goods data expected at 8.5, coming in at 16 spot 4. Your durable goods ex transports expected at 0%, coming in at 0.5%. That's your durable goods data posted in the news desk.
Morning. Morning, Isaac. Morning, Ali. Hada, good morning. E40, what else? Yes. Phone in the box. Surge pay. Dominic, good morning.
On LAES, strengthens IOMP security and hedge AI. On DDD.
Yeah, we don't know how good of a day it's going to be. You know, yesterday was pretty nasty, actually. We had quite the down breath day. So, yeah, I don't know, man. Yesterday was buenos dias. Yeah, it was yesterday was a little bit interesting. You know, it's like for every Nvidia or JP Morgan, you had a toast or an Oklo. So it was kind of rough out there, right? It's like you had these and like this down bar wasn't the only one, right? I mean, look at an Oklo, right? Look at, your IONQ, some obviously a little bit nastier than others, but speculative money. And then even these recent IPOs like Circle, like you're off, 35% in 3 days. CoreWeave with another crack here. So, I mean, again, this one's kind of within range of volatility, but something tells me that this one's probably going a little lower. So, I want to be super optimistic, as always, but I always tell people the best buys, and I'll repeat this again and again, the best buys come after a correction, right? You start to get to, things have been ripping for a month, things have been ripping for 6 or 7 weeks, and then it starts to become a little bit more difficult to get involved. And that's just really what it's been. So, it just becomes more difficult to get involved. It just is what it is. And the best buys, in my opinion, they're occurring against their ascending moving averages. You start chasing stocks, breakouts, and it's, for me, it's been no success. Morning. Yeah, yesterday was an odd day. Breath was super terrible. Celsius has been in a nice uptrend for a little bit. Yeah, I don't. Here's the thing: nice hammer, but it's not really the best setup at the moment. Let me take a peek at something really quickly. Celsius is it's not that extended. It's not that extended. But I just don't see a clean setup. Like in here against these key moving averages while this thing was building higher lows, against these key moving averages like in here, 530 or 6.3 looked a little bit better. Here I don't really see anything perfect. Like they look like they may have bottomed, but Can I explain to you the high volume close setup? No, this isn't going to be. How was yesterday? On the short side? Yeah, possibly. Yeah, it could have very well been a short below, 41.98. But the high volume close setup is exactly what it sounds like. So picture a name like Sezzle, where it gaps up on earnings, right? And you have like this, pretty muted volume, and then all of a sudden this massive ramp in volume, right? Then you look at the close, 74.98, call it $75, and you go to buy it through the close, right? And then obviously you get this awesome trend, right? Dave, another example of that, right? You get the close on massive volume compared to every other day. And then you get the close, you look at the close, and you're looking to buy over 152.73, right? Call it 153 by the time you get your entry. And there you go. Oddity did something similar, although Oddity dealt with a little bit more of a pain in the ass, but you got your close and then you get your entry. You did get a gap down, but even that level ended up holding really well right in here too. Yeah, AVAV. Yeah, that could be. Again, just market dependent, right? We've gotten kind of to the point where this looks similar to like a Dave or a Sezzle, where like you could look at Sezzle and every day it's just kind of in this little uptrend before that earnings gap up, right? AVAV, very similar, but the I wouldn't say the word the problem is, but the problem is we are now at the ends of June versus us being, um, in May, right? When we had just been coming out of a correction, right? Like we just got out of the correction. Right now we're 3 months past that correction where the correction basically ended. Like, the correction ended in April 1st, effectively. So now we're 3 months past that. Stock market's at an all-time high, right? You're not the best stocks are born out of corrections. We are already well past out of a correction. It's the reason why Netflix has been no headache, Hood's been no headache, Palantir's effectively been no headache, Nvidia's been no headache, Microsoft's been no headache, Sezzle and Dave have basically been no headache, Spotify has been very minimal headache. CrowdStrike, similar deal. The stocks that were showing relative strength, during the correction are the stocks that, have done a really nice job, leading. But now you start to get a little bit long in the tooth on the market. And I'm not saying that the market's downtrend's over. I'm just saying that really when you look at the market, unless this is 2020 all over again, V-shaped recoveries aren't nearly as common as we all think, especially not ones that were this steep, right? These little, it makes everything else look like little blips, right? Like look at how absolutely massive that was. I mean, I remember this was a 10% move, 3-wave down, 3 months. This was like, it felt a little bit more of a pain in the ass. This was like very quick and violent, and then all of a sudden it's like it never happened. Oh, and by the way, in 2 weeks, that whole thing that caused this move, aka tariffs, is right back on the board in like 2 weeks. So, yeah, I'm not sure. AVAV is a very similar looking setup, but the market isn't in a very similar looking spot, and I think that that's good to differentiate. It could work still, but keep that in mind. I like to buy my positions all at once if I can. You know, if I'm just going to go with a little bit smaller of a position, then, I just buy it and then I look for an entirely new daily setup, to buy some more. Yeah, I saw that CYN. Yeah, Nvidia partnership news. Crazy. I saw that this morning. Seems kind of like fluffy news. And honestly, it's already up way too much. Like, I don't day trade stuff like this anymore. Short Apple. Yeah, it could be. It could very well be a short. Not sure. Could very well be a short. I mean, it's just not going anywhere, right? It's just digesting while the market's been V-shaped recovering. If the market, let's say, were to go down, 5, 6, 7%, Apple's going to get its ass kicked. I've answered this question before, the size game. This is actually a really good question, and there's some nuance there. So if a breakout I buy doesn't move up after a few days, will I close it or wait for it to hit the stop loss? Okay. So just a little thought exercise here, and this will make a lot of sense after we talk about it. So if you buy something like a breakout and it's not moving after a few days, will you cut it or wait for it to hit your stop loss? Okay. So if the stock market's, if I bought a breakout and the stock market is ripping, right? What would you expect from your stock as well? Well, you would expect your stock to also be going higher, at the very least with the market. If you're in a leader, you would expect your stock to actually be outperforming the market, right? Market's up 0.5%, your stock's up 1.8, 2%. The stock market's up 0.7, your stock's up 3.3, right? The stock market is flat, your stock is flat or up 0.2. Stock market is down 0.5%, your stock is down 1%, right? Something like that, where it's like outperforming effectively the market over the course of like that week. But if the and by the way, that's what you would expect from a breakout in a stock that you think is a leader. And then on the flip side of that, if the market is going, if you just bought a breakout and the stock market's going down for like that week, 3, 4, 5 days, right? Where like over the course of that week, the stock market's down like 2.2, 3%, but your stock is flat, right? Your stock's actually doing what? Your stock's showing relative strength. So you may want to just hang in there, because the minute that the market gives you an up day, right, your stock might just rocket out of, wherever it's at the current moment. So, you always want to think about what your stock's doing in context to the market and what your stock's doing in context to, its peers and what group it's in, right? If it's in a leading group, institutions either aren't selling or are buying more, hence the reason it's holding up well while the market's going down, maybe. Or if it's in a leading group, maybe it's the reason why it's ripping, more than, other stocks in the market, because it's in a leading group, and it's leadership. So hopefully that makes sense. That's a great question, but again, there's nuance there. So I don't just want to say I just get rid of it. You just would like to hold it so long as it's not doing anything, entirely wrong. What books do I recommend? How to Make Money in Stocks by Bill O'Neill. I recommend the Mark Minervini books. I recommend Stan Weinstein. And I'm onto a good one right now that I'm enjoying, called High Probability Trading by Marcel Link. So this is an interesting one I've been on right now. So that's not a bad one either. But yeah, it's a good question. Go. It's quite a bit extended. Go is 8 times its average to range from the 50. I can't buy Go. You had 2 better entries on this earnings gap up, or, it's about it. I don't really see another great setup here. Could it keep going? Maybe, but my thoughts on Eat and Guardian Health. Guardian needs to get moving. I've kind of had this thing on watch for forever now. And then EAT is in a good group. I don't necessarily love. I would like to see the 50 catch up a little bit more, or I also like Shack, a little cleaner. Well, since it tracks Bitcoin, what would help make the decision is what's Bitcoin doing? Is Bitcoin breaking out? And I personally prefer, IBIT at this point. People can call MSTR a double bottom, but could be. Not sure. I mean, it's above all key moving averages, so that's the important recognition. This little down day where it had a pickup in volume and lost the 20, 392.56 is the level I've been watching. So how do I see Lumen? It's trash. It used to be $10 and it got its ass kicked. Yeah, it's horrible. It's below the 200 simple moving average. Doesn't matter what group it's in. It's below the 200. Leave it alone. I mean, it looks god awful for now. Could it look better in the future? Yeah, it could look better in the future, but for now it looks horrible. Where's the interest in a stock that's below the 200 in a long-term downtrend? LASR2 extended. Yeah, let it go sideways. I've got a little bot, but basically what you can do, I got a little bot where it tells me how extended something is, but basically what you do is you take the 50 simple moving average and you divide it by its average daily range over 20 days, or average true range, if you'd like. So, effectively something like LASR moves, call it 5% per day, and it's 40% above its 50 simple moving average. So it's 8 times its average daily range above the 50. It's too extended. MU's been upgraded by a bunch of analysts. What are my thoughts? It's already too extended. It's already extended from the 50. It's like 13, 12 times its average true range from the 50. Let me just triple check. Maybe a little less. 11.93, 12 times. Yeah, that's too far gone. Not buying that. They can upgrade it all they want until it builds out some sideways consolidation, similar to what it did here. See this digestion here, this sideways, perfect, right? And then you're buying it coming out of the consolidation. Yeah, no, not buying a stock that's extended, guys. That's just not the way. Not unless you enjoy headaches. I think you got two choices for IBIT, and I talked about this already. Things are definitely in an uptrend. So the best way to buy something is pullbacks against ascending moving averages. So this entry here on 623 was definitely interesting because it's an undercut and rally and a bounce off the 50 simple moving average. So you've got your level $57, and then you've got this other level 57.70 where it's undercutting prior left side lows. And then you get this undercut of price a few days ago with Bitcoin. And then you get your rally back through. So right here at $57, it's trying to bounce off the 50. Right? And then it gives you that 620 setup where your 6 period moving average crosses above your 20. I learned that from Gil Morales. So effectively, here's your level, that left side low. When it reclaims that level, you can buy it here and use a dollar stop. Could have gotten in just a little bit sooner as well, and then had your 80-cent stop. So you'd effectively be buying the move back up after a dip, right? And then you've got a level, key level, 57.70 that it reclaims, plus the 50 simple moving average, which at the time was like just sub 57 bucks. So that's the better way, I think, to buy things. Yeah, Marco, I talked about this in the Discord this morning. It's also why I do not trade biotechs. If I'm going to trade biotechs, you don't trade individual names. You know, what looked pretty good yesterday, like this little bull flag, can only imagine how many people drew this shit on their screens and then bought this crap yesterday. And then this morning, it turns into an absolute fucking nightmare. Sucks because what did they even do last night? You know, they were kind of ripping it a little bit higher and people are getting all excited. And then, you know, they're literally living their worst nightmare right now. So sucks. Yep. Yeah. If you miss VSAT, you miss VSAT. You know, let it tighten up again. Look for a similar little setup. Let's see what VSAT is right now. Yeah, 7.73 times its average true range from the 50. It's just too far gone. Let's look at MP. Yeah, this MP is not super ugly. Little pullback against the 10. Quiet little pullback here. I mean, it's not terrible. Not like I love the name per se, but it's a little extended as well still. Just a little extended. I just don't want to buy extended name, guys. It's just a no-go. AAOI needs some sideways. I like that it's finally back above the 200 simple moving average, but it needs some sideways. Aldrich, again, I talked about this in the room. The best time to buy stocks is after a correction, right? Not after a huge price ascent, right? After a correction. Think about a stock like Hood, Netflix, Palantir, Zscaler, Nvidia. You know, again, the list goes on and on and on and on and on, right? Those all started emerging after the correction. They were the stock showing the most relative strength during the correction. So they were the ones that were holding up best during the correction. And then as soon as the correction ended, first week of April, those stocks were already starting to emerge, right? Like look at when the market bottomed, right? This is on April 7th. And I was talking about Netflix as an undercut and rally at 854 bucks, literally on, if you guys go back on the stream, April 9th, 2 days later, right? I had this thing on the watch list, April 9th. So, you know, yeah, that's just kind of the reality. The best stocks are showing relative strength, you know, during a market correction. And again, same thing with Crowd, did something incredibly similar. Same thing with Palantir, did something very similar. Same thing with Hood, did something very similar. You know, the weakest stocks, you know, they went way past March's lows. The strongest stocks did not. So, you know, now buying breakouts has been pretty tough, and the best setups to buy occur immediately after a correction. And then again, you know, try to sit in them as absolute long as you can. I didn't do the best job of that personally, so I'm trying to get myself repositioned in some names that look good. So yeah, you know, it's just been difficult, but the best way to do it is buying against descending moving averages. Is LAES lagging or setting up? What's it setting up for? They don't make any money. They're a fake ass company. What exactly do you think? I mean, could they squeeze higher? Yeah, of course they can. You know, nice move up, nice little long base. You know, could it squeeze higher? Yeah, sure. But, you know, they're not a real company, dude. They make no money. Is this really what you want to own in your swing portfolio? Like LAES, this is the shit you want to own. This stock here, they make no fucking money, dude. I say this all the time. The kids in my neighborhood shoveling my driveway in winter make more money than LAES. AMPX, yeah, too thin. Too thin. But clearly a name I've looked at before. Yeah, I mean, trades 15 million bucks a day. And I'm assuming they're a biotech, right? That's kind of from the looks of it. Let me see. Oh, they're not. They're actually electrical equipment and parts. Cool. How thin they were and how choppy they were. Thoughts on STNE? Yeah, I don't mind STNE at all. Looks like it's trying to go into a stage 2 uptrend. Yeah, not bad. I really like this digestion here. How quickly would I cut a position? It depends the setup. Sometimes my stop is its prior low of day. Sometimes my stop is that day's low. Sometimes the stop is a different pivot. It depends. It depends. Cutting off a position after 0.5%, I don't judge cutting off a position based on how much money I'm losing. I cut the position based on where my stop is. If I could only pick 2 moving averages to swing trade, which would I use? Boy, if we're talking about a faster moving stock, the 10 and the 20 simple moving average. If we're talking about a little bit slower, the 20 and the 50. Do I think SMCI has run up too much and needs more sideways? Well, you tell me, what does this look like to you? Run up too much? This looks like sideways to me. I mean, that's a perfect rectangle, basically. It hasn't even run up at all. It's just been going sideways since it's at the exact same price it was May 14th. So just because it's up, in this much in 2 days doesn't mean it's actually run up at all. It's just been going sideways here. JFrog. Yeah, little shakeout and comeback. Yeah, looks good. I don't know that it's perfect just yet, but yeah, it looks pretty good. Yeah, LRCX is definitely in stage 2. Yeah. So is KLAC. And so is ASML. Just some are a little bit better than others. And so is, it looks like AMD. Trying to, at least. Buy HUSA for oil exposure today? Why the hell would anybody do that? Why would somebody buy this name that does this 24 to 10 in 3 days? That's terrible suggestion, Alex. If you want oil exposure, there are way better names than that. I mean, you got AR, you got CR. I mean, in an actual uptrend, for a long time now. You got CRK, an actual uptrend for a long time now. You've got, dude, I'm not even going to go into it. Buy HUSA for oil exposure. Krog does look pretty good. It would be nice if it can get it going over 500 bucks and stop being so damn choppy. I mean, this thing, just choppy. TTEK. I haven't even seen that one. It's below the 200 simple moving average. Looks not that great. I don't avoid no revenue companies altogether. I just don't want to own a portfolio full of them, right? There's no need. If they're in a hot theme, then the theme can be played. But, just owning a portfolio full of non-revenue turds, how do you sit in them for months? Yeah, AVAV could potentially be a high volume close, but we're not in the same environment as we were last month when Dave and Cecil were working. Based on what I evaluate, if a company makes money, what am I looking for? I'm looking for accelerating earnings and sales. The same thing institutions would be looking for. Institutions want to know that if I give this company $100, are they going to take that $100, put it to work, and then that money they're making accelerating income on that money every quarter, right? That's the idea. Do they have a product that they sell that they make money, right? You don't really want to be dealing with too much speculative turds. You want accelerating earnings and sales. The best movers in the stock market, the best moves occur from stocks which showed accelerating earnings and sales for 3 quarters in a row. Guys, for anybody who has yet to read How to Make Money in Stocks by Bill O'Neill, I highly suggest it. RL. Yeah, this is pretty good. This one's given some nice setups along the way. I mean, really like only 1 or 2. Like this was pretty decent in here for this earnings gap up. Right in there. And then this was pretty decent right in here. Yeah, just a series of higher lows. Yeah, you might not be the only one waiting for a pullback in this uptrend, and we might get one, soon. Could get it as early as today or tomorrow. Like nobody knows, but the reality is we might not get a real correction, a big one at least. We might not get like some 8 or 10% correction. You might only get like a 4 or 5. So who knows? We're not entirely sure. Nobody knows. Yeah, IBKR is in a good group. The banking names are good. Banking names are hanging in there. Alex, I think you've been missing the picture. It doesn't seem like it seems like the news says that they've agreed to a ceasefire. So, and again, even if oil decides to go higher, of all the names, you think buying the worst of the bunch is the way to go? I don't understand why that's even an option. And trust me, the oil names could very well go higher, but I don't understand why we'd have to own the worst of the bunch. Yeah, BRSN, it's just so slow. If it didn't move so slow. What do I think about TMC? It's extended. TMC gave 3 entries. One on this day here, 414, another one on like 450 or 515 or even 516, and another one on 616. Now it's just too extended, dude. Like, you like it way up here. Where were you at 2 or at 3 or at 450? Now all of a sudden at 8 you like it? You know what I mean? Like, could it go higher? Yeah, of course it could, but like, where's the digestion? You want to buy it after you want to buy stocks coming out of periods of sideways digestion. That's how you get these moves up, and then you get some sideways digestion, and then you get a move up, and then you get some sideways digestion, then you get a move up. Like, now you just want to up and buy it super extended. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Indy garbage trades $14 million a day, just got above the 200. Looks like hot trash for now. And CRML looks horrible. What the hell is this? I mean, could this go higher with this volume explosion? Somebody probably soaked up the whole float in here, but I mean, Zhao, you need much better stock selection, friend. I short parabolic moves, yeah. I also short stocks breaking down, like these quantum names. They're probably my favorite they're probably my favorite shorts at the moment. As a group, they all were moving down yesterday, which is exactly what I would think is going to occur when the group's getting ready to break down. USAR. Yeah, no. It's just too thin. Well, I don't even, what the hell do they even do? Yes, CYBR definitely looks better. For cybersecurity, yeah, this one's in a nice uptrend here. But who knows? Cybersecurity's been acting really well. CYBR, NET, extended though. RBRK, which just recently had a nice little pullback into the 50. The only thing I don't like is this pickup in volume. Pan W near an all-time high, and CrowdStrike. And CrowdStrike looked pretty good. Names all look like they're trying to go higher. I don't own any uranium names. No, kind of kicking myself too, dude. I used to own CCJ at like $24, and I got caught in a gap down way down here. Never forget it. It's way gone. CCJ looks good. Shook me out though. Scared me out. Way back in the day. Took a super nasty loss on it. ECG. Just thin. Less than $20 million a day. Yeah, I like Shopify. That was on the watch list last night. Yeah, we'll see what it does today. Yeah, yeah, I saw that. I saw Pulte mention that yesterday. I think he's kind of crazy for doing that, considering it's so volatile. So, like, imagine you can get a mortgage that you really couldn't afford otherwise just because you got some Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin implodes like, oh, I don't know, 70% or something crazy. But all right. I mean, why not? What could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong is the bank gets your house and your Bitcoin. Yeah, NRG, nice uptrend, but very choppy. If I'm not mistaken, they're a utility name. Utilities didn't have a very nice day yesterday. Yeah, I'm familiar with SMR and LEU and OCLO and NNE and CEG and VST and GEV and the whole batch of them. Man, I was in CLS. I just let that sucker go too early. ETN. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of breaking out of my little flat pivot here. I've had this name on watch for a while now. It took me like, well, I lost at the time, and it was at the end of 22, so that already sucked because it was already a kind of crappy year. But it was like a 250K loss, and it took me like, oh, I don't know, man, 3-4 months to recover, and then mentally, a few weeks. It just sucked, because that was a good at the time. It was a nice little percentage of the money I had made, so it was, kind of shitty. Yeah, I like semis. I don't own any at the moment. I do like ASML. I like that AMD is getting back above the 200, but I don't like any of the digestion going on with them at the moment. So I'm just kind of holding off for now. Do I use volume as a filtering tool? I sure do, but it's dollar volume that I use, not just volume, right? Because something can trade 100,000 shares, but if it's Melly, that's a $2,000 stock. Well, that's plenty of dollar volume. No, I don't like IONQ. This was a very nasty pull yesterday. And what did you notice about the group? QUBT was weak, QBTS was weak, Rigetti was weak. My guess is that they're shorts, that these things go lower. I wouldn't be buying IONQ personally. Dude, it's not that difficult, man. If a stock trades 1,000 shares a day, right, and is $1, well, then you trades $1,000 a day, right? It's like you need the stock to trade. See this little blue tab up here? Rigetti trades almost $500 million a day, trades $589 million. So it's more than I need to get involved into a Rigetti. So you just need to make sure that based on the size of your account, you're trading names that are liquid enough for your portfolio. That's all that really matters. I don't hedge long positions with options. I just like to short. So I just short stocks that are showing relative weakness. And that's how I hedge my longs. Yeah, everything speculative did gets hit. Nicholas, yeah, good point. Stocks that have low volume are trading larger spreads. That is very true. ARM, yeah, I just never saw a clean setup on ARM to get involved in this thing. I just never saw a clean setup. Otherwise, I would have tried to, bought this name. I just didn't see anything worth buying here. Check BN. Yeah, not bad. Near an all-time high. Consolidating pretty decent here. Don't love how it gave back the entire move yesterday, but that was like everything in the market yesterday, man. For every one up name, there was two down. Yeah, A-Lab I thought was perfect. One of the guys in the room bought this thing yesterday right at the 200-day, exactly how we talk about. So you get this little pullback right into the ascending 200 SMA, and you can see on a smaller time frame how it hits the 200 simple, and then you get your 620 setup right in here. Right, so you're buying this in here with your stop at low. That's less than 2% risk. Even if you had like 10% of your account there, you're risking like 0.2%. It's very small. So yeah, A-Lab was a pretty interesting setup down here. And in this environment, that seems to be the better method for buying stocks is against ascending moving averages, versus buying a breakout. The Arlo cameras, man. I was just looking at this thing yesterday. I bought this thing such a long time ago, way back here. Who would have known Arlo would have done such a nice move? Yeah, it's like breakouts are kind of a pain in the ass at the moment. It's the reality. Breakouts are a real pain in the ass. Yeah, Oracle's a bit extended. Yep. I thought Oracle had a little bit better setup in here. This little bull flag coming out of this little bull flag. Or I guess if you bought it on the earnings gap up day. But it's doing the right thing. It's digesting properly. It's not like massive volumes coming into this thing to sell, but it's just tricky, man. They're buying these little breakouts. I mean, again, this thing hasn't even broken out, but they're making buying them a little tricky. Yep, that works. Yeah, a few of the names that I've talked about in the room are LTH. As potential shorts. They broke down on earnings, has been doing nothing while the market's been going up. Geo was another one that I talked about, did something very similar where it broke down in May. Market was still going up. This thing was going sideways, right? So you just flip this chart upside down, it would look great. And then, you're just now rolling over under the 200. MMYT was another one. It was living underneath the 200 right in here. And breaking down. So these are the kind of ones that you would be focused on. Copper Copper's acting well. So you got a few names. CopX. Let's see. Yeah, bit of a gap up today, huh? All right, guys. I got to get moving. Got to get ready for stream. I appreciate you guys a ton, as always, for being here. Please trade them well, and I will see you guys in 23 hours tomorrow morning. Cheers.